Once again, a pleasant good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this another edition of the Curtlyn Warner Show. Today in the mix, I have two gentlemen that needs no introduction. On my left, we have Herbert Martina, and on my right, we have my co-host, Mr. Elvis Flanders. This morning, we'll be discussing a little bit about the current situation that is taking place in St. Maarten on the political side. I'm going to ask the gentleman a few questions pertaining to the current situation that we are going through in St. Maarten when it comes to our financial situation and our health issue that we are going through with the pandemic. Without further ado, I will ask Mr. Elvis Flanders on my right. Mr. Flanders, how do you think government is operating under these circumstances?
Well, to give my input as to how government is going through the situation right now, I think they're doing a pretty decent job. Reason being is because this is a situation that is all over the world to begin with, and it is something that I have seen in my view as walking into a dark room and not knowing what's going to happen. We had Hurricane Louis, September 1995, which is 25 years ago. And recently, 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, we've had Hurricane Irma and Maria. Hurricane Irma being the worst for us ever. So this pandemic is something totally different. From a hurricane, you know, there could be a projected time that you can bounce back. But this pandemic is something that we've never seen before. And it's very scary, but it's something to learn from, you know. And I think that our government should be trying now to make better provisions for the future in case we encounter any situation, because the situation that we're in now is not to be blamed by this government. This goes back 20, 30 years of government that could have made things different, which would have put us in a different situation today. That is my input.
All right, Mr. Herbert, I will ask you almost the same question, but I must say to you this. As Mr. Flanders said earlier, that we go back to some 25 to 30 years ago when Hurricane Louis devastated St. Maarten. Let's go back to that time. What do you see from that time to this time in terms of government? What did you see and what do you think should have been done?
Great. To be quite honest, in that time, I was a young guy, but still old enough to remember. The fact that after Hurricane Louis, they were a sort of like a nationalism. I think people and government put aside all and they work in the best interests of the people. Okay? We had the cleanup, we had the relief efforts, and then we basically had years of rebuilding, okay, St. Maarten. Now, to today, what I have been a proponent of is the fact that government should put everything aside and work together. As you said, this pandemic, we in our lifetime have never experienced something like this. So if we have never experienced something like this, and we could have worked together in a Hurricane Louis, or even come together in a Hurricane Irma, sort of, all right? Now this pandemic should have taught us that, listen, put all political differences aside. I was calling for a national government. I was calling that we don't have, and guess why? Because once we have opposition, once we have ruling party and stuff, whatever the ruling party is doing, the opposition's job is to oppose it and to criticize. And you have been seeing that today. I have been a proponent of, listen, we still have the current ministers, however you put it, in a portfolio. However, we come with an agreement that we have more input from the opposition that the opposition can come and give their ideas and well received. Okay? We have experienced people on the UD. We have the young professionals on PFP. You know, you can tell me that they couldn't be the ones dealing with how to integrate and get their think tank working, because they have a good organization. When I say a good organization, that can be mobilized and they could be of asset to this government. Now, what we have is, let's take for instance the recent announcement of project houses and government building that's going to take place, going to be knocked down, the old administration building. All right, UD came out and highly criticized it. Now I can understand that, okay, why you would criticize it, but had the opposition been, let's say, directly involved in the whole making up of that, do you think that they would have been criticizing it? No, because public housing is a good thing. All right, revamping Phillipsburg is a good thing. However, my whole thing on this whole issue is that unless the Ministry of TEAT is involved, then you can put all the best buildings in the Phillipsburg area. That would not attract people to Phillipsburg. Okay? What attracts people to Phillipsburg is people, is policies and stuff. One of the things I see is that and I go in haywire, but I want the public to understand one thing, right? It is considered more profitable to open a business paying a higher rent in Simpson Bay. Guess why? Because there's a lot of foot traffic. All right? Now, why don't we give incentives to those that are going to open businesses? And I'm talking about serious tax breaks. I'm talking about, yes, more incentives. I'm talking about a serious issue into security, having the police officers patrol here even more often, giving them a sense of security and everything. All of those things are incentives to have people come back to Phillipsburg. Okay? Parking is an issue. We have a bunch of lots that is owned by several businessmen and establishments. Then we make a deal with them that, you know, it's not $5 to park or $3 an hour or whatever, but it's a minimum so that you can revamp Phillipsburg. So I'm just giving you a little synopsis of, you know, my thinking. However, coming back now to government, and I was hoping that they would have come together, seeing that this is a unique situation. It's affecting all over. Do something different. If you want a different outcome, you have to do something different. And I think the different thing that they should have done is basically come together, all right, and make a national government work.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna give my take on this the whole current system that I'm seeing. And what I'm seeing, we had Hurricane Lewis in 1995, Hurricane Irma in 2017. In 1995, after Hurricane Lewis, I think the government that was in charge at that time should have made provision to put some sort of package that in the future we could always have a disaster fund. After Hurricane Irma, the same, I would say, that we always need to have a disaster fund put aside. Gentlemen, I want to ask you, gentlemen, this. What do you think about our government not making that preparedness to have some sort of fund as disaster? It may not be the greatest amount of funds, but there are something. And my take on the current situation with this government, it is time for our new government. Some people call them the COVID government, but I'm going to call them the government of St. Maarten, and I feel they are doing a great job, great enough job. And I think that what they need to do now, government on a whole need to sit down, buckle up themselves, and start to make provisions to do some sort of setup for the future of this country. If we want to see this country grow, these are things that they will have to do. Then we go to the Parliament of St. Martin, the legislative of this country. The legislators need to get their act together and make legislation that will benefit the interests of the people of this said country. Mr. Herbert?
I do agree, Curtlyn. I agree full-heartedly. However, let me just make one correction. And you said that a disaster fund should have been set in place. Now, I think under the administration of the former Prime Minister, Leona Marlin, she was a great proponent of having such a fund created, okay? And then she was ousted. So that was in the plan. However, I am going to tell you this, that we can't blame those that are there now, because I've seen a lot of new faces pass through the halls of Parliament, okay? Even to our ministers, we see a lot of young faces, okay? So we can't blame them of what should have happened, but we can set a standard and say, okay, what are you doing now? What funds are being available? And not only just make a fund, but you set criterias why and how this fund can be drawn off. Meaning, don't save up in a fund and then because it is election time and you see the roads need to be paved, you take out of that fund, dip your hand in the cookie jar. No.
Correctly said.
This is a fund that needs to be with guidelines stipulated that if, let's say, our entrance to the island is hampered, right? We can dip into that fund. Let's say if a natural disaster, earthquake, or let's say an act of God, right? Then we can dip into that funds. And not only just dip into the funds, but there's guidelines in where the funds should be go and how bids should be carried out and
prioritize.
Exactly. So that's my whole take on it. So it's not too late. The pandemic, nobody knew about it and you know what was going to happen, but now is the time to react. Now is the time to act, basically.
Mr. Flanders, what's your take?
Well, I would first go by saying this. You know, I've been paying very close attention, especially to how businesses have been closing on the island. And I've noticed our finance minister, he's out, for instance, being very hard on people with taxes and stuff like that. I believe that a good initiative that he could have done is, let's say, give a write-off for the balance of 2020, seeing the situation, no money coming in, period. I mean, yes, things are hard, and it's no fault of this government, but at the same time, it's no fault of the people also. If you put so much pressure on the businesses and individuals to pay their taxes, it simply means that you're asking businesses to close down in a nutshell. You know, so we have to find a different way to go about this, and that's one of the ways of alleviating things for our people, for our businesses. Encourage them to stay, to remain open as one aspect of things. And in terms of how we should move forward is, you know, we can't go back to what has happened.
I agree.
But what we can do is prepare for what is about to happen or what can happen to us in the future. So it simply means that we have to be better prepared. I expect government now to strap down, tighten their belts, and make all the necessary adjustments possible to make this country move forward better. Tourism is our main source of income, our only pillar. Now we have an opportunity to maybe go into a little bit of agriculture. How much can it help us? Maybe enough to help chop, you know, put a little cork in a hole here and there, but still not enough. So we have to find different ways to regenerate revenue for our government coffers and everything. But it simply means that we have to do things different moving forward. In a nutshell, it simply means that our government needs to be more focused. Our legislators needs to put policies in place that's going to protect the country and protect the people. Businesses should have had accounts in banks where when they decide that they want to close or go bankrupt, the people's money are secured. These are ways that we protect our people from losing their funds, from losing their years of service. You understand what I'm saying? So, in a nutshell, I would like to see government start making the right measures possible to protect not only country, but protect the people themselves.
Well said. Herbert, would you like to add anything to that?
I would definitely like to add to that. Not losing the trend of thought, but we're talking about the one pillar economy, and we're talking about the time that we could have used to do so much things. We see that NEPA was a very good initiative taken. I must say so. You know, those that were working in the hotel industry, they went there, customer service. A lot of people, by the way, says that they benefited. They have a sort of a how do you say, workshop there, a training, which is considered about Samaritan culture, about Samaritan politics, basically about Samaritan history. And so much people are saying that they learned so much. I am hoping that the government of St. Martin prolong that how do you say? I'm hoping that the government of St. Martin prolong that whole initiative, whereas people can go and learn about St. Martin culture, St. Martin history, and revamp themselves when it comes to customer service. So when our tourists do come back, right, that we are considered the friendly island again. Now, talking about the legislative branch, I believe that the legislative branch, I think they should be able to start working on policies, all right? Start working on policies right now that everything is slow, that benefits the people of St. Martin, okay? When a meeting is called, can you please, this is to the chairperson of parliament, can you please have these meetings periodically so that, the people's business can be handled? And when I say that, right, up to now, we still need to find out what's going on with the whole timeshare law that's going on. All right, at least let's hear about it. Let's know that you're working on it. Okay. Something I would like to see accomplished right now, and we had a disabled gentleman on our program, and he says to get this understand is means of help when you don't have a job, when you're unemployed. But his situation is never going to change. All right. And this gentleman is Fritz Panteflet, all right? His situation is not going to change. He's lame from the legs down, okay, the waist down. So why should he have to be always renewing, his documents in order to get understand? That's one. Number two, to get into town, he needs special transportation. Our public transportation are not well equipped in order for disabled people to be able to move around freely. And they have a right to be moved around freely as well. They're human beings, okay? That's two. Do you know that the transportation, special transportation, $80 in order to go from where he is to town and back? $80, all right? And I know that's an individual business, so we can't bash on them, all right? But government needs to step up and make laws. They need to put a disabled funds in place and not to understand that this gentleman don't have to come to town all the time and have to renew and get a document here, get a document there. Those are simple things that I think that is copy paste. It's something that needs no brainstorm about, okay? We have the Council of Advices, we have the High Councils of States that I think the Audit Chamber, I think the Parliament should take their advice. They're getting paid and let's use their expertise.
Well, thank you, Herbert, and thank you, Elvis. One of the things that I personally would like to see on a change of when I said earlier, the legislatures should do. I think it's time for us to go into the different areas and generate revenue so we can have for this disaster fund. On my take, I think if we go to the harbor and we said every passenger that come off of a cruise passenger, we're going to take 2 cents from whatever fee they pay and we put towards the disaster funds. Every passenger that comes off, or every departure tax that a person pay, we're going to take 10 cents from it and it's going to go towards the disaster fund. GEBE, every person that pays that electrical bill, 5 cents of that your electrical bill would go towards government coffers. But these laws, the telephone industry, the same. Every phone card you send, we take 1 cent. And these things will add up. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about what I'm saying. I will start with you, Elvis.
That's a great initiative. Let's go back to several years ago when 3% turnover tax was introduced. And we saw how good that worked. Government saw how good that worked. So what they did, I think they increased it to 5%, wasn't it? Or it was 1% and then it went up to 3% or something like that. But it's just to show you where and how you can generate funds. You know, and there's so many ways that funds can be generated. There was an additional $5 added to a fee at the airport, and they call it a cleanup fee. And where does this money go? Who has access to this money, to these funds? These are funds that should go into one area, and as you know, was mentioned earlier, should not be able to be touched just like that. Like the good gentleman, Mr. Herbert Martina said, not when there's election coming around and the road needs a fix, we take that money, we try to push it in that area. But it needs to be set for what it's set for, so that it doesn't be touched ever so often. Otherwise it would never grow. Otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. So when we say a fund, it should be specially for a particular event or situation that occurs, that it can be used for that. You understand what I'm saying? So we need to, put perspectives in place, do the necessary things that has to be done, which will benefit the country, and we will see how productive and how these things will work. And we can do better. It is up to government, it is up to the legislators in parliament to put the necessary measures in place, to put the necessary policies in place that will be effective and has to run the country on a day-to-day basis. But not that who's in government decides what goes. That should not happen.
If I can jump in on that, I think one of the arguments that will be used, especially in a competitive area, and especially after COVID, is the fact that all other destinations, whereas is touristic destination and have a port, if we increase our port fees, then of course, then it would be non-competitive to the others that are lowering their port fees. Okay, so even if we increase it by $1, all right. So I think that we should look in existing things like Western Union, and we don't always want to jump on the low-lying fruit, all right. But something, as you say, on every dollar that is sent out, 5 cents, 3 cents, or whatever, and we would see that it generate enough money in a time like this. Not only Western Union, all right. Right now, if you're looking at Amazon, ordering things from away, how much money does St. Maarten actually generate out from that? Okay, I'm not saying that we have to be taxing, but this is extreme situation and cause for extreme measures. So I'm saying let's get inventive. All right, the port is a good idea. The cleanup fee that they had on the airport, perfect idea. But we shouldn't make the amount that would scare people off, because every little bit by little bit will fill our disaster fund, so to speak. Right? So I get what you're saying, and I totally agree with you.
Well, that's why one of the things I was saying, as minimum as possible. That's why I said, 1 cent, 5 cent, 10 cents, because we are doing this for the long haul, not even for our generation, but for our children. Because in these times, we do not know when a natural disaster is going to strike. We do not know when a pandemic is going to strike. Those things is not known to us. So if we start now, and we're looking towards the next 20 years, the next 50 years from now, maybe when we pass on our children, they will be the one that benefit. And definitely. I think in this time is the correct time. Now that we are sitting, some of us are working from home, it's time for us to sit down and put our minds together and said, in 2020, there was a pandemic, but the government and the legislators of St. Maarten hold heads together, and this is what they bring forth during the pandemic. I think now is the opportunity for them to do such an act.
I just wanted to say something, and I don't want to hog the mic because I know it's your show. However, I must say this. A lot of time we look at how to earn money in order to, fatten our coffers. But how we spend money as well, responsibly, that's how we know that we can save some money. Let's take, for instance, consultancy fees, all right, that the government. How much reports have been made about the dump? How much studies have been made about the dump? And the same result over and over. Every time we have a minister, they have to do a next report. They have to do a next, hire next consultancy agency and stuff. Those are the things that is drying up the coffers of St. Maarten, and it should stop. Secondly, okay, so we're talking about consultancy fees. How much rent is government going to pay? Now we saw a nice little ad come out in the papers and saying that the BTP building is going to be the whole floors are going to be utilized, okay, and government would save $30,000 to $40,000 a month, okay, resulting in how much millions a year? I'm asking, right there next to us, how much that parliament costs each month? All right, how much does it cost to house 15 members of parliament and their factions and the individual parliament staff? All right, it's a lot. Now, if we had taken that money, all right, and had a parliament building already secured, then rent would have been a thing of the past. We have to look at cost-cutting measures as well. Not only earners generators we should be, but we're supposed to be able to save money. All right? I always say, my mom, when she wants to supplement her income, what she does is she makes Johnny cake. Okay? But she doesn't spend frivolously, meticulously. She buys what she needs and stuff. And I think our government should be like my mom. All right?
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We don't want to take too much time into this interview, but Elvis, Herbert, as Prince, as we can call him, brought up a great thing when he talked about the dump. The dump in Phillipsburg has been an issue over a number of years. I could remember some 2 years ago, I think, right after Hurricane Irma, I think I stand to be corrected. I don't know if it was Mr. Connops or Mr. DeFries. One of the good gentlemen was here in St. Maarten, and they were saying one of the first things they need to get fixed in St. Maarten was the said dump. And to date, we haven't heard anything. There is numerous amount of studies being done on this dump. What are your thoughts about the dump, Elvis?
Very simple. Very simple. Look, I know of 2 proposals that were initiated for the dump. Now, that's already two proposals, 2 assessments. As Prince mentioned, we had people come in and give the assessment of how much the cost would be and stuff like that. Now, the thing is this: what's missing is the reality, which is continuity in government. Yeah. Because if things were being continued, even if another minister takes over, maybe what he can do is do a little tweak here and there, but not stop the project from going through, or changing it because it doesn't benefit them, or they won't get the credit from it. What needs to happen is continuity in government, and a whole lot of problems will be solved, because all those consultant fees that we talk about that's being paid to different entities that come in for consultant would not take place. So we have to look at where we're going to cut costs, as we were talking about. Has to start by continuity in government, because every minister gets in every department has something different to adjust, and then he's looking to get consultant fees for everything. So it makes it different. It costs our government a tremendous amount of money that it shouldn't. So let's start there by getting that piece of legislation in there, which continues the process of government. Even though government falls or government changes, continuity continues. These are the things that will help our country, help our people, help our government to save money, which is more efficient than anything else. So we got to look at things the right way. If our legislators start doing the right things, our country is going to stand to benefit. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the other day.
Let me just quickly say something on that. All right. Do you see in the papers the only thing that is continuity about government is court cases? No, think on it. Think on it. Why we never heard a project come to light and then a minister say, well, to be quite honest, our previously minister started it and stuff. I didn't do anything. All I did was tweak a few things that we saw that was going to, not be in the benefit of the people. And here it is. I present to you this and invite the minister, the ex-minister, and ribbon cutting ceremony. No. But what we can read in the papers is that continuity in government with court cases. Now we have Alegría down there with a court case. That's because of the previous governments. All right. So this is where I think that we as a people supposed to be serious and come serious about and demand more from our government when it comes to continuity.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Thank you, gentlemen, for having this discussion. We look forward to having another discussion where we can do this all over again. On behalf of the Curtlyn Warner Show, I would like to thank Mr. Herbert Martina for sitting in with us today. And we look forward for another dialogue with you too. Thanks for having us. Mr. Flanders, as usual, as my co-host, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.